isn't it, to host the 2020 Olympic Games, helping some companies' shares somewhat this morning.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there were great pictures in the early hours of Sunday morning
Lots
from
of
Tokyo of celebrations of everyone looking very delighted with Tokyo's successful bid. The bidding committee says that this will bring Japan, 150,000 jobs and add $30 billion to the Japanese economy. Now, that's helped share prices. The Nikkei closing up 2.48% in trading today. Let's just take a look at some of the companies that are benefiting from that boost. Taisei is a big construction company in Japan. Their shares up 14%. Mitsubishi Estate Company and the Shimizu Corporation are both property developers, tipped, in fact, to build the new Olympic Village. Their shares up over 4.5%. You can see there already. Even All Nippon Airways, Japan's largest airline, their shares also getting a boost from that announcement. Now, analysts are pointing out that this share boost probably won't last for very long, as these companies will have a long way to go before they start making money from the Olympics.
It does come, though, doesn't it, as new figures pointing to Japan's economy getting better anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've been getting this continued monetary and fiscal stimulus called Abenomics, the policies of the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. These are the latest figures showing its effect in the Japanese economy grew at an annualised rate of 3.8% in the 3 months from April to June. They've also revised up the figures for the first 3 months of this year. As you can see, a huge jump there from the end of last year to the start of this year. Signs that those policies pumping more money into the economy do seem to be working.
Any of that having an effect on the Asian markets today?
Yeah, well, the Nikkei, as we were saying, up 2.48% when it closed, but also the other Asian markets doing well. Figures from China showing their exports are up, also helping the Hang Seng and the Shanghai Composite, as you can see there. Interesting too to check in just with shares in Sydney after the election victory of the Conservative Liberal Party there over the weekend. Investors particularly concerned about this potential to repeal one of the mining taxes, which may help that very important sector of the Australian economy.
Okay, story from here in France next. Customs officers, they've seized more than 100 million euros worth of cash, basically, at the country's borders. That's in the first 3 months of this year alone.
Yeah, that's right. And that figure's up 500% on the same period last year, a huge increase in cash being seized. Now, authorities are set to break the record for the amount of money they're seizing at borders this year. But experts are saying this isn't from the usual reasons for carrying large sums of cash across borders, usually attributed to things like drug trafficking. But instead, they're saying it's because people are moving their money to avoid high taxes in France. Siobhan Silk has more.
When Boris Boyan, a former French diplomat, was heading to Brussels from Paris last July, he packed more than a toothbrush and a change of clothes. He also carried 380,000 euros in undeclared cash. It was a particularly high-profile collar for customs officers, but this type of seizure has become more common.
The number of seizures has increased, but also the amount of money in each seizure. Where before people would try to transfer 50 or 100,000 euros, now you see amounts of 3, 4 or 500,000.
The predicted haul for 2013 is 415 million euros, compared to just 150.5 million in 2012. Authorities believe the proceeds of drug trafficking make up only 10% of that figure. The main purpose of cash smuggling is tax avoidance.
It's cash, so of course it won't appear in bank records, and the state money laundering unit won't be alerted. It's untraceable unless the smuggler is caught at the border.
The biggest seizure of cash on its way out of France in recent months was last December. Officers found 38,000 banknotes stuffed into the seats of this car, adding up to 1.8 million euros.
The day's other business stories now, and shares in China's state-backed oil company PetroChina were suspended for several hours in trading this morning after reports that 5 senior executives were being questioned over corruption allegations. Now, PetroChina issued a statement saying the reports were untrue, and its shares resumed trading shortly afterwards. Several senior figures at the firm and at its parent company have already been questioned over a corruption investigation.
TSB Bank will return to high streets in Britain this week, 20 years after it disappeared. 630 former Lloyds Bank branches going to be rebranded as TSB as part of moves to separate the firm's retail and investment banking businesses. More than 4.6 million customers have already had their accounts transferred to TSB.
And Microsoft is making its Xbox Music streaming service available for free online. The move means that users won't need to have Windows 8 to access the service, which competes with the likes of Pandora and Spotify. Analysts say it's also an acknowledgement that the music service hasn't helped boost sales of the new version of Windows.
Now, Stephen's written on my piece of paper, finally, some good news for chocolate lovers. That's everyone, Stephen. That means good news for all of us, because European authorities officially say it is good for you.
Yes, the European Food Safety Authority has allowed a Swiss chocolate maker, Barry Callebaut, to mention the health benefits of chocolate on its packages. Now, the company is the world's largest chocolate maker. They supply their produce to bakeries and caterers and all around the world, but they had to apply to the European Authority to be allowed the exclusive right to say on their packages, cocoa flavonols contribute to normal blood circulation in the human body by helping to maintain the elasticity of blood vessels. So there you have it, officially good for you.
I have to be honest, I wasn't listening to a word you were saying. I was too busy looking at the pictures. Stephen, thank you very much. Chocolate on France 24, good stuff. Thanks very much. He'll be back with more bulletins, of course, in the business in about 15 minutes' time. Now, we've got a story about the price of onions. Doesn't quite work after chocolate, does it? In India coming up for you. Also, Iron Man's costume made out of balloons. It's all in today's web news.
Sold at 9 rupees, that's around 10 euro cents a kilo. One online retail site in India has been selling onions at an astonishing rate. The deal of the day group buying website was selling 3,000 per day over a 1-week period at 5 times lower than the market price. So popular was demand that on Thursday the website crashed. Onions are an essential ingredient in Indian dishes and salads, and prices have soared in recent months. Social networkers have been commenting on the situation with more than a hint of irony. Some have been describing the vegetable as a luxury product which has become too expensive for the popular classes, whilst others have been circulating recipes that don't use onions. The price hike has also fueled protests as the country deals with rapidly inflating food prices. In an attempt to deal with the onion crisis caused mainly by a smaller harvest this year, the government has announced plans to start importing onions from neighbouring Pakistan in order to satisfy demand. But this isn't enough, say opposition parties who are also debating the onion crisis. The BJP recently organised a slashed prices onion sale in New Delhi to highlight the government's failure to stabilise the inflation rates. And the subject could well become a major electoral issue over the coming months ahead of next year's general election. Two relative unknowns, Charlie Hunnam and Dakota Johnson, have been chosen to play the central couple in the upcoming film adaptation of 50 Shades of Grey. E.L. James, the author of the erotic novel and worldwide bestseller, made the announcement on Twitter on Monday. The casting has been confirmed by Universal Studios, and it hasn't gone down too well with fans of the famous book trilogy. Many are disappointed with the choice of actors, saying they're totally different from how they imagined and how they were described in the books. Unhappy fans who had other ideas as to who should take on the roles. A petition's been started on the site change.org, urging the producers to change their minds and hire Matt Bodmer and Alexis Bledel for the highly anticipated film adaptation. The document has drawn some 72,000 signatures so far. Fans have been designing mock-up 50 Shades of Grey promotional posters featuring the proposed casting change, but the film's co-producer Dana Brunetti stands firm and has taken to Twitter trying to defend the choice of actors. This is the second time in recent weeks that a film studio has prompted such a fierce public outcry over a casting choice. Batman fans began an online campaign last month urging producers to have a change of heart after it was announced Ben Affleck was to take over from Christian Bale as the Caped Crusader in the upcoming feature film. This artist, who uses the online pseudonym Dito Von Teese, takes photos of his index finger and then uses computer software to add features that magically manipulate them into famous faces, fictional characters, and also historical figures. The works are available to view on his blog Ditology and involved a great deal of time and effort to produce these pretty impressive portraits. For the 2013 Sydney International Food Festival, an Australian advertising agency has recreated some of the world's national flags with the food with which the country is synonymous. So, the Italian flag, for example, is made up of basil, pasta and tomatoes. Greece features feta and olives. And Japan is represented by raw tuna and rice. Mouth-watering stuff indeed. To celebrate its upcoming digital release of Iron Man 3, one UK-based video-on-demand service asked Jeff Wright to recreate the suit worn by Tony Stark in the superhero films using balloons. And as we can see in this time-lapse video that's been doing the rounds online, the American artist successfully completed the challenge. His balloon costume is very similar to the original and took 364 balloons and 10 hours work to complete.
I love all the burst ones all over the floor. Impressive costume. I don't think it would offer him much protection, though, I have to say. Coming up for you in the next half hour, Asia Live. We're going to be talking about former Red Guards under Mao coming out of the shadows and apologising for the Cultural Revolution. Plus, of course, all the news and the sport coming up as well in the next half hour here on France 24. Stay with us if you can.